Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video of the economic link. The difference between the North and the South in England. Famous difference culturally, linguistically, and especially for the economy. And that's what we'll look at today. How different are the two? How did they get here? And what are some potential solutions? Here's some of the broad consequences of that divide between North and South. Lower average incomes in the North. Higher health spend, but lower life expectancy. Higher unemployment in the North, and arguably the one single positive one. Lower house prices than in the dense South, especially the southeast around London. Of course, these are general trends with notable exceptions. Manchester has managed to beat London in terms of growth, and itself, Liverpool and Leeds are experiencing urban regeneration. Even near Newcastle there are new projects, new industry. However, the economic hinterlands seem to be left behind. Part of why that has to do with the economic past of the area. Coal mining and heavy industry, Sheffield, for instance, was renowned for being a steel production centre before deindustrialising. And an over-reliance on those industries meant that a streak of economic and social shocks, the rising competition from developing economies and raw materials like coal and steel, the miners' strikes in the 80s and the dismantling of trade unions during Margaret Thatcher's prime ministership, it broke those industries down and the many companies operating in the north were thinned out. Fewer employers means fewer people employed. You can't get employed in another colliery if they're all closing. And that affected people beyond those working in coal mines. Who's your corner shop selling if everybody's unemployed? This is one explanation for the bad fortune of the North. But there's other areas in the UK and beyond that have recovered from deindustrialization. So there needs to be an explanation for what's happened since the 80s. After all, it's been 30 odd years since the collieries began closing. There was plenty of time for a turnaround. Well, there's two things that could have saved the North and maybe helped it close the gap with the wealthier South, especially the orbit around London. One, government channeling investment to places hit hard by the loss of jobs, and two, political influence and control to advocate for the North. It turns out if the North was playing poker, it'd be dealt a no pair and a 3. Most of the money government poured went to London. Its transport network with multiple renovations to the TfL network, the motorways connecting London, and even financing the city. That's the London Docklands Development Corporation, which was funded by the government. It built Canary Wharf in the late 80s and early 90s. That's the new financial centre of London. And the North consistently received and receives less money than the South East in particular. Around £420 less per head than the area around London. So what about political influence? Where are the advocates for the North? After all, there's around 10 million people in the combined metropolitan areas of just Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Bradford and Sheffield. That's more than London, in fact. So what kind of powers were devolved to account for this? As it turns out, pretty little. In terms of transport, there were several rail strikes and service mishandlings over the summer with train skipping stations, leaving late, arriving later. While London decides its own transport policy, none of the northern cities had anything similar. Transport policy was decided by the national government, which you can see the effect of on this map. Notice on the map that if you wanted to go all the way from London or Bristol to Scotland, which most people forget is the true north, there's only a handful of transport links. In fact, it might be cheaper and easier to take a plane. Rail-wise, there's no high-speed link to the north, and the proposals for HS2 extensions and HS3, the next high-speed lines, they're far better connected to places like Birmingham and Leicester in the Midlands than the north. But, and this is crucial, this is changing. Sure, the Northern Powerhouse, that government pet projects to create an economic, you guessed it, powerhouse in the North, has been all but gutted. But there have been baby steps towards true change. In 2017, there were elections for the mayors of Greater Manchester, Leeds and Sheffield, which now have wider powers to control transport and economic policy in their cities. But there's also been the 2011 Localism Act, which went away towards giving cities local powers, more local powers. And perhaps the most important, businesses like the BBC are moving to other cities than London. Manchester has become a digital hub on the scale of Berlin and Paris on the back of the Salford Quay BBC estate. So perhaps there is hope. Certainly, there are more solutions. Pushing more companies and government departments out of London will help, not least because with lower land prices, it's also cheaper for companies. Devolving key powers to places like Liverpool and Sheffield and Newcastle will help. But key investment there will help more. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up, drop a comment down below with your own opinion, and if you love this kind of content, please do subscribe. It really helps the channel. See you next time. Ciao!